right, so Rod, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the merchant processing industry?
So I've been in payments and banking for over 31 years. I started in banking when I was in college, which led me into payments by accident, which a lot of people in our industry find themselves accidentally in payments, and then once you get in, you can't get out.
Right.
So I started on the streets, as they say, carrying the bag, talking to businesses, knocking on doors, establishing services for merchants and things. And then over time, I've worked for different acquirers, processors, independents, privately held, publicly held, all those wonderful things. I've also done international. So I've got a deep background for payments, all the way from sales to operations, business development, strategy. So obviously my role here at Touchsuite is Chief Strategy Officer with an emphasis on sales and business development and revenue.
And you've really run the gamut of the industry over the years.
I have, and I've been very specific on roles and things that I've taken so that I could get that type of experience. Because my biggest thing is I want to make sure we don't have silos and that we're working across the enterprise together.
Right.
So by having an understanding of each one of those different groups allows you to have discussions when you're sitting at the table, you understand. And it also gives you the foresight as you're planning or wanting to do things, how is it potentially going to impact another group or department.
Gotcha. And what types of businesses typically benefit the most from the merchant processing services that you're?
So when I started in the 90s, as I tell my kids, the 1900s, it was more, at the time, was more of a trying to convince businesses for acceptance. Now, sitting here in 2023, just about every single business has a need for acceptance of payments. So I started in this industry before McDonald's even took credit cards. So that really shows you what the evolution of it is. And like I said, back in the day, we were convincing dry cleaners, auto repair shops, QSRs, fast food, that the consumer wanted to pay with a card. Now, as you set up your business, you're automatically looking for a payment provider through either online, or from your friend, from your bank, or something like that. So you don't have to convince people to take cards anymore. Now it's a matter of convincing them to work with your company.
Absolutely. And are any other ways that besides what you just talked about, where the industry has kind of evolved over the last several years specifically?
Yeah, I would say we've seen a lot from an omni-channel perspective, especially if you think back to COVID.
Right.
Before COVID, you had a distinct difference between your retailer, your card present in person, versus your online e-com and things like that. And those although companies, some of the larger big boxes, I think of Victoria's Secret, I think of Dillard's, I think of Sears, that's not even around now.
Right.
But I think of those companies, they were doing both, and were trying to go after the omni-channel side. But now, think about it, restaurants, retailers, people have gotten comfortable in the matter of shopping online or looking for something online or calling ahead or doing something, so that now, hey, I want to buy that, but I'm going to come and pick it up.
Right.
Or I'm going to do something. So I remember, specifically during COVID, I was contacted by a bunch of different companies that were focusing on POS systems and other things, and they said, Rod, what should we be working on? I said, at the end of the day, by the time this is all over with, omni-channel is going to take over, because customers are going to change their buying habits.
Right.
So that is something that's probably evolved the most. The other one I would also say is in the mobile payment space. Customers, again, more comfortable moving to that technology.
Right.
And a lot of that had to do with the contactless. They didn't, were afraid to touch terminals or hand cards and get things back. So those are probably the two biggest that I've seen over the last several years, and now all personally, I think, resulting from COVID and everything we went through.
So it's kind of been a combination of the world we live in and what's happened, with COVID and other things, as well as the technology.
Sure.
Kind of at the same time, that's kind of helped to advance things over the last few years.
We say that COVID actually went and grabbed 5 to 10 years in advance of what eventually we felt was going to get here. but it got pushed very quickly, and adopted was probably more the thing. I mean, think back to the chip cards, think back to the contactless or the tap, all that stuff was going on, 2008 to 2020.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, now there was a real need for it, and people started adopting it. So if that technology hadn't been out there for 5-10 years, it probably wouldn't have been there, because you can't really introduce something during that. But the fact that it was there obviously benefited it. Now the adoption has taken over.
And it kind of sped up the process.
Yeah.
So can you explain kind of the key differences between traditional merchant accounts and then a payment aggregators, kind of like Square or
Sure.
PayPal?
Yeah, so when you think about Stripe and Square, obviously the two most popular, both from a card not present and a card present. These companies, basically, they're PayFacs, or they're merchant accounts with sub-accounts underneath them. So if you are a startup, you want to go get get processing and stuff like that, a lot of the traditional processors and acquirers still don't take certain types of businesses, or the cost of setting up a merchant account can exceed $1,000.
Right.
These aggregators can actually do everything online very simply, and it's a sub-account. Well, the problem with the sub-account is you can only run that to a certain volume, and then once you exceed those volumes, they have to go into traditional accounts. So, I can think back, I'm also part of the Midwest Acquirers Association. We had Jack Dorsey come and speak at our conference back before he was launching Square. And everybody in the industry, as far as ISO's agents, were all upset. No, you can't have him speak. He's going to come and change our industry and compete against us. And we're like, yeah, this is a perfect topic, perfect subject. And what we learned from that was a lot of the industry types that they were looking at were not the ones that we were traditionally looking at. And also, what it also allowed these companies to do is get their feet under them, get 90 days, 6 months of processing, and then come to a traditional provider that can set them up with an account, because a lot of times you want to see merchant statements. You want to see stability, that they're not getting a lot of chargebacks or high refunds or inquiries and things. So what I would say is what started out really more from that regards as for a lot of startups and things like that, we're still seeing that today. But what it also did is it changed our process of how do we board accounts. It used to take a week, sometimes 2 weeks to board an account. They're doing it instantaneously within a few minutes because of being sub-accounts and doing all that. They also can have reserves, they can hold your money, they do all of those stuffs automatically. Whereas on this other side, the traditional merchant account, again, we talked about that now we can get those done same day. We can sometimes, 1 or 2 days if they're of a higher risk nature and stuff like that. So I would say your biggest difference is where are you at in the life cycle, and what type of industry are you at? Again, I've seen merchants use both.
Gotcha.
But I think what most merchants find is as they've been around for a longer time and are established, they're going to want customer service. They're going to want to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, these other providers, in some instances, the only way you can communicate with them is through email.
Right.
So if it's 12 o'clock at night and you're trying to batch out your bar and you have a problem, you want to be able to call a customer service number that will be able to help you, other than sending an email and then waiting for a response.
Right.
So I think I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it actually did, and actually leads to the next question as well. So you brought up kind of the onboarding
Sure.
process and how that seems to have gotten streamlined over time. What is the process for setting up and activating a new merchant account with you?
Yeah, so for us, we have sales department that is focused on working with merchants directly. So once they have that communication, we're sending out the agreement for the merchant to review and then sign. Obviously, they send that back in through our CRM system. Then that's automatically going over to our operations group, our risk group. So everything is happening behind the scenes. And then
Right.
once that gets approved, then if they're getting new equipment, or if it's a brand new startup, or if it's online, they'll get a VAR sheet. So it's pretty streamlined, very simple and easy. Go to the Touchsuite website to inquire about services. Somebody will follow up with you, or you can call our 800 number. Somebody will talk to you right away and get you set up for that.
Perfect. And then, so you brought up some of what you have within the company, how it's all integrated together. So how are you able to assist businesses in integrating your merchant processing with their existing POS systems or their e-commerce platforms?
Yeah, so again, we use some specific gateways that we already have integrations to. So in this world, you have all these different solutions and different things, and it's all about integrations.
Right.
So if your solution that you're using, your back office program, you're an ISV or whatnot, if they have certain integrations that are in place with companies that we're integrated to, then it's seamless. You don't have an issue or a problem. If it's something that we don't currently have an integration for, or we can't get an integration through some of our partners, then we're going to look at the size of that opportunity, and if it makes sense, then we will do some development work and make that happen. But that's what you see in a lot of these instances. We're looking for partnerships. We're looking for groups that have integrated products and services that potentially want to go after a larger audience or base of customers. So doing integrations, just because we don't have it available today, doesn't mean that we wouldn't put the work in and be able to do it. But there are so many different pieces of equipment, so many different systems, so many different gateways, so many different things. I simply just tell people, let us understand who you're with or who you want to be with or what you're using, and then let us go do the research to see how we can make it work. I always liken it to putting puzzle pieces together.
Gotcha, yeah.
That's the part of the business that I really enjoy is putting those pieces of the puzzle together. And that's the same with our sales folks as well. They want to close that opportunity, meaning they want to be successful in moving forward with it. And if they can do that, then that's going to sometimes require some research on their part, but they're going to put the work in for you.
And you look at those situations not as problems, so to speak, but more as challenges. And
I was, when I was with a previous company doing international, I always loved everybody to come to us and say, hey, we've tried with everybody else. What about that? So I actually built a PayFac product for a very large business, we'll call it corporation, that they had tried in multiple different places. They couldn't figure it out. So the team that we had of folks that I was on, we were able to solutions that out, put it together, and then ultimately launched it in Ireland.
That's amazing.
So I enjoy that.
Yeah, and also it's one of these things when you interact with another company, you see what their challenges are, and you come up with those solutions. Right. You can apply those to other companies you're going to work down the road.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of them probably have the same challenges.
You're absolutely right. When you work with experts in the business that have been it, like myself, that have been in this over 30 years, and you're teamed up with other people who have that same passion,
right,
then you will figure it out.
Right.
It may take a little bit, but you will figure it out.
Absolutely. Obviously, you're dealing with financial industry, so it's heavily regulated. Any recent regulatory changes, how they affect the merchant processing industry, or more importantly, how they impact the businesses?
Yeah, I think the one that everybody's having some challenges with right now or concerns around is obviously we have the surcharge and we have the cash discount. Mm-hmm. So recently Visa has come out and said that they're doing independent, or we'll call them mystery shops, that they're going out there, a very large number that's going to be happening. They're going into individual businesses, making sure that they're following the rules that they need to follow. They have the appropriate information displayed, and if not, they could end up being fined for it.
Right. And
those fines come through different, obviously through the processors, and those can get very expensive very quickly. They can even lead to you getting shut down and not having the possibility of acceptance. So I think that's probably the biggest one that everybody's watching right now. Obviously, this is affecting anybody who's taking cards that is adding additional fees to that. There, certain states allow for that. MasterCard and Visa, Visa specifically came out with some new regs on it. MasterCard is involved, with the acceptance there. So I would just encourage everybody, if you have any questions about it, reach out to your provider. Your provider can share that, make sure that you're compliant. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to be compliant. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not compliant, then it rolls uphill, actually not downhill.
Absolutely.
It goes uphill, and then, because then for us as a ISO, or even to our partners who are processors, that becomes a big issue. So we want to make sure we're all compliant, but at the same time, I also want to make sure my competitors also have compliant business, because if you're not following the rules, it just creates more rules.
It's bad for everybody.
It's bad for everybody.
Right.
You're right.
Speaking about that, looking into the future, your crystal ball a little bit, any upcoming regulations or other requirements coming in the future that you've heard about, or will be coming, maybe not in effect yet?
Yeah, for me, I haven't. There's nothing that's jumped off the charts right now for me that I'm watching. I think within our industry specifically now, there are some concerns as it relates to Durbin. We have the original Durbin. Now there's another bill that's trying to be passed around through there that would eliminate some of the rewards, potentially eliminate rewards, or bring even interchange, regulatory, if you will, to some of that interchange. So that one everybody's watching. Keeping an eye on. Last year it didn't do anything, didn't go anywhere, and supposedly, based on what I've read in some instances, there seems to be some pickup from a bipartisan perspective. We are an unregulated space in the U.S.
Gotcha.
I've worked in Europe where it's highly regulated. I've also done stuff in Australia where it's also highly regulated. So our biggest thing is, if we don't police ourselves, if we don't regulate ourselves, or at least hold ourselves accountable to the rules and things that we've put out there, and it causes continuous issues for the consumer, or merchant, then guess what? We're going to end up being regulated. And I can tell you that it's so much better to not be regulated in some instances, in this case, by creating your own rules and doing your own things.
Right.
I'll give you an example. So in Europe, it's regulated, but it doesn't require a bank. You can be a principal member to be a processor. In the United States, we're unregulated, but it requires a bank, which in essence, the bank is really the regulator, in my opinion, having come from a banking background. So it's a very interesting dynamic between the two of them. So in one instance, I say we're regulated because it's by the banks, the banks are obviously regulated, but it's not directly back to the payments. So there's still some gray areas in there.
Gotcha.
We just got to keep we got to keep our noses clean,
right,
and not go too far out there, because otherwise we'll cause our own demise,
right,
as it relates to regulation.
Well, so obviously there's all these type of things going on. There's a lot of emerging payment methods, cryptocurrencies, digital wallets, things like that. How are those affecting the merchant processing landscape?
Yeah, so what I would say, thinking about that, crypto was very hot, for several years,
right,
and then it got too hot because people were doing the wrong things,
right,
we'll say. So the noise around that has subsided a little bit.
Right.
I don't hear, used to every other call I was on, people were looking for a crypto wallet. How do I get to this? How do I do that? Not to say that that's completely died. Hell, people still use cash, right?
Absolutely.
People still use checks, and they told us that we were going to a cashless society. Hell, I went to McDonald's, 5 years ago, and somebody was writing a check there. So,
right,
you look at that. But I think having choices, all the alternative payment types, all of those, that has actually helped the payment space, the electronic payment space, because that's more avenues of acceptance. That's more demand by customers to do that. We have multiple wallets. We have multiple apps. We have, all these different types of currencies. And what I've learned in doing both international and domestic in the U.S. is a customer wants to pay how they feel the most comfortable.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're of the younger generation and you're all about electronic on your phone and doing, different wallets and stuff like that, you're going to go to places that are going to accept that.
Right.
Right? If you're, old school and you want to use your credit card and you don't want to do touchless, contactless, whatever, then you're going to go places that do that. And then you're going to have alternative payments in specific markets. And then alternative payments is no different than what we really consider debit networks here in the United States. So what I'm all for is the consumers being able to pay the way they want to.
Right.
Obviously, in different countries, their alternative payments are much greater than here in the United States. Pretty much in the United States, we have the 4 cards, we have the debit networks, and then we have the acceptance of Apple Pay, Google, all those those types of things, and maybe a few alternative wallet types.
Right.
But as long as you don't have to accept them all, you don't have to have all of them, but you've got to have a good mixture for people to be able to do that. I mean, this goes back to when I started in the business in the 90s. Again, remember we talked about you had to convince people to accept.
Right.
Now it's not a matter of convincing, it's a matter of, okay, we do. But this goes back to American Express. American Express has a higher discount rate than any of the others. So a lot of businesses didn't want to take American Express. Well, if you're carrying an American Express card, and your American Express card is your corporate card, your business card, and that's what your company requires you to use, you're taking a client out to a dinner, a lunch, or whatever, you're staying in a hotel, motel, whatever it is, you are only going to go where that was accepted.
Absolutely.
Right? So I liken this to the same thing. Now it's not the Amex card. Now maybe it's the Apple Pay. Now maybe it's the wallet that the teenager maybe wants to use or whatnot. So we just have to be cognizant of who our consumer is and making sure that we give them the ability to use it to make purchases.
So along with all those modern ways of paying, all the alternative methods and where we're going, what about the advancements in the actual point of sale hardware and software, how they enhance the customer experience?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we called them dumb terminals, right? I mean, it was something you programmed in there. You swiped a card, it dialed out, it came back with an authorization, it made a print. Now, you have inventory management systems. You have the POS systems that have clock in, clock out function. It has your inventory. It has all those different types of things. So clearly the advancements that we've made and those types of products and things are definitely benefiting the newer types of businesses and things like that. I mean, we still see, every time I see an old Xon Junior XL or Hypercom T7P, you just kind of laugh. It's almost like an antique, right? It's almost like that 57 Chevy driving down the highway, and you're like, wow, we don't say that's cool about those old terminals. Those were dumb terminals. We've moved on into better technology. And, so here at Touchsuite, for us, obviously we have the terminals. We also are now into the kiosks.
Absolutely.
We were just having a conversation with a business developer yesterday on their POS system. There's so many different options that are out there for these business owners to take advantage of. It's not a one size fits all. It's what is your specialty, what do you need, and then identifying the best solution for you.
Gotcha. And then what steps are you able to take to make sure that your merchant processing services are scalable to accommodate as the businesses grow that you're working with?
This goes back to the comment that I was making earlier about the businesses. A lot of startups and things like that may start with an aggregator like a Stripe or a Square. And as your volume grows or as your services are expanding in needs, it's about partnering with somebody who has additional products and services. The nice thing is that when we're looking at business, especially underwriting those businesses, because I don't know, some people don't realize this, but when you apply for a merchant account, you're really getting an unsecured line of credit.
Right.
Okay? There's no collateral. There's nothing that ties to that.
Exactly.
And there's a 182-day, 6-month window that a customer can come back with a chargeback.
Right.
So really think about that. I'm getting a $25,000 a month or $50,000 or $100,000, whatever it is. I'm not secured on any of that.
Right.
So now, depending on your industry, we may ask for a reserve that ties to that. It could be 5%, 10%. I've seen them, go much higher with other companies and other industries and things. But you got to take that into consideration as you're doing this. So when we're underwriting businesses, we're not only looking at what they're willing to do or what they say they're going to do today, but we're also looking for growth. We're also looking to see how will they be able to do these things. And as they grow with that, obviously, your risk in that regards as a processor increases. So you want to make sure that you're still there, but also your needs. Maybe you start out as a retail, then you go to online. Now you need a website a provider that's going to process website.
Right.
Or in the case of you start as a restaurant, QSR, then now you want to do takeout. Well, guess what? We have kiosks for that.
Absolutely.
Or we have inventory management systems, POS systems. So we, again, we're partnering. We're the experts in payments. They're the experts in running their business.
Right.
So we always, and one of the things I'm trying to share with the team and get them to start thinking about more is, we're an educator. We're not in sales. We're in education.
Absolutely.
Have the experience, the knowledge, right? We're the experts. And being able to know that you have that type of person on staff,
right,
if you will, as part of your business. They don't even have to be in your business, but you know that in this case, we're the payments experts. So as you grow your business, as you have questions, pick up the phone. You give us a call, and we can take care of it.
It's about becoming a true partner with
Correct. I look at this goes, and some people that might see this will liken back to this, but I hate the word vendor. Okay, I absolutely hate that.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of partner, even to the point of when I was running another organization. The other parent, or I shouldn't say the other parent, the joint venture holder of our company always referred to everybody as vendors.
Right.
And I always referred to everybody as partners, because what you said earlier, you're in partnership when you have suppliers, right? You're partners. If they don't send your stuff, then you can't necessarily do your business, right? No different than we partner with merchants, business owners, because we have to partner together. If we can't provide them the services, then they can't process. They can't process and they can't run their business. And if they can't bring in the business, then we can't process it, and then we can't be. So I'm a big advocate of partners.
Awesome. So what challenges and solutions do you foresee for the businesses that operate in, as you brought up before, the omni-channel retailing space?
I think the biggest challenge that will continue to happen as it evolves, it's going to take more time, is making sure that inventory management systems match up. I'll give you an example. So during COVID, I was looking for soap. Great. Walmart. Right, equate. So I was looking for a specific, the foaming, so I could refill it.
Right.
So I would go on to Walmart and I would look and I'd say, oh, they've got 10 of those. Right. Or they got 5 of those, says it's in inventory. I would drive there. I didn't order it, but I would drive there, and guess what? They had none.
They didn't have it, right.
So I think the biggest challenge that Omni is going to continue to face is making sure that the inventory matches up for that consumer who, again, may look, not buy. Oh, okay, I see it. I want to go look at it. I want to touch it, feel it, and whatever. Almost like a showroom, right? You remember service merchandise.
Absolutely.
A lot of people won't.
Sure.
But service merchandise, what was it? It was a showroom, and that's what it was called.
Yeah.
You went, you looked at your item, and once you're ready to do it, then they rang you up, you filled out that slip, and then it came on that conveyor belt.
Absolutely.
Remember that conveyor belt? So all the inventory is in the back.
Right.
But you could come, touch it, feel it. Best Buy. Think about a lot of these major big box retailers. That's really what they are now.
It's true.
So the consumer may not want to buy online. They want to go feel it, touch it, look at it, and then buy it while they're there. Well, if you're saying inventory-wise you have it, and then the customer goes and they don't have it to even look at, then that's going to frustrate them, and then they're going to stop doing it.